Before they knew it, the close, old-time companionship was lost. One day she discovered his interest in another woman. She lost her head and became hysterical. She consulted her minister, who adroitly turned the conversation to herself. She admitted being a careless homemaker, and that she had also become self-centered, sharp-tongued, and nagging. She then confessed that she had never felt herself the equal of her husband. She had a profound sense of inferiority regarding him, feeling unable to maintain equality with him socially and intellectually. So she retreated into an antagonistic attitude that manifested itself in petulance and criticism. The minister saw that the woman had more talent, ability, and charm than she was revealing. He suggested that she create an image or picture of herself as capable and attractive. He whimsically told her that God runs a beauty parlor, and that faith techniques could put beauty on a person's face and charm and ease in her manner. He gave her instruction in how to pray, and how spiritually to picturize. He also advised her to hold a mental image of the restoration of the old-time companionship, to visualize the goodness in her husband, and to picture restored harmony between the two of them. She was to hold this picture with faith. In this manner he prepared her for a most interesting personal victory. About this time her husband informed her that he wanted a divorce. She had conquered herself to the extent of being able to receive this request with calmness. She simply replied that she was willing, if he wanted it, but suggested a deferral of the decision for 90 days on the ground that divorce is so final. If at the end of 90 days you still feel that you want a divorce, I will cooperate with you. She said this calmly. He gave her a quizzical look, for he had expected an outburst. Night after night he went out, and night after night she sat at home, but she pictured him as seated in his old chair. He was not in the chair, but she painted an image of him there comfortably reading, as in the old days. She visualized him pottering around the house, painting and fixing things as he had formerly done. She even pictured him drying the dishes as he did when they were first married. She visualized the two of them playing golf together and taking hikes as they once did. She maintained this picture with steady faith, and one night there he actually sat in his old chair. She looked twice to be sure that it was the reality rather than the picturization, but perhaps a picturization is a reality, for at any rate the actual man was there. Occasionally he would be gone, but more and more nights he sat in his chair. Then he began to read to her, as in the old days. Then one sunny Saturday afternoon he asked, "What do you say to a game of golf?" The days went by pleasantly until she realized that the 90th day had arrived, so that evening she said quietly, "Bill, this is the 90th day." "What do you mean?" he asked, puzzled. "The 90th day. Why, don't you remember? We agreed to wait 90 days, to settle that divorce matter, and this is the day." He looked at her for a moment, then hidden behind his paper turned a page, saying, "Don't be silly. I couldn't possibly get along without you. Where did you ever get the idea I was going to leave you?" The formula proved a powerful mechanism. She prayerized, she picturized, and the sought-for result was actualized. Prayer power solved her problem and his as well. I have known many people who have successfully applied this technique, not only to personal affairs, but to business matters as well. When sincerely and intelligently brought into situations, the results have been so excellent that this must be regarded as an extraordinarily efficient method of prayer. People who take this method seriously and actually use it get astonishing results. At an industrial convention banquet I was seated at the speaker's table next to a man who, though a bit on the rough side, was very likable. He may have felt a bit cramped by his proximity to a preacher, which obviously wasn't his usual company. During the dinner he used a number of theological words, but they were not put together in a theological manner. After each outburst he apologized, but I advised him that I had heard all those words before. He told me he had been a church attendant as a boy, but had gotten away from it. He gave me that old story which I have heard all my life, and which even now people will get off as something entirely new. When I was a boy my father made me go to Sunday school and church, and crammed religion down my throat. So when I got away from home I couldn't take it anymore, and have seldom been to church since. This man then observed that perhaps he should stop going to church, since he was getting old. I commented that he would be lucky to find a seat. This surprised him, for he did not think anybody went to church anymore. I told him that more people attend church each week than frequent any other institution in the country. This rather bowled him over. He was head of a medium-sized business and he fell to telling me how much money his firm took in last year. I told him I knew quite a few churches whose take exceeded that. This really hit him in the solar plexus, and I noted his respect for the church mounting by leaps and bounds. I told him about the thousands of religious books that are sold, more than any other type of book. Maybe you fellows in the church are on the ball at that," he slangily remarked. At this moment another man came up to our table and enthusiastically told me that something wonderful had happened to him. He said he had been very depressed, for things hadn't been going well with him. He decided to get away for a week or so, and on this vacation, read one of my books, one in which practical faith techniques are outlined. He said this brought him the first satisfaction and peace he had felt. It encouraged him as to his own possibilities. He began to believe that the answer to his trouble was practical religion. "So," he said, "I began to practice the spiritual principles presented in your book. I began to believe and affirm that with God's help the objectives I was endeavoring to accomplish could be achieved. A feeling came over me that everything was going to be all right, and from then on nothing could upset me. I absolutely knew it was going to be okay. So I began to sleep better and feel better. I felt as if I had taken a tonic. My new understanding and practice of spiritual techniques were the turning point." When he left us, my table companion, who had listened in on this recital, said, "I never heard anything like that before. That fellow talks about religion as happy and workable. It was never presented to me that way. He also gives the impression that religion is almost a science, that you can use it to improve your health and do better in your job. I never thought of religion in that connection." Then he added, "But do you know what struck me? It was the look on that guy's face." Now the curious fact is that, when my table companion made that statement, a semblance of the same look was on his own face. For the first time he was getting the idea that religious faith is not something piously stuffy, but is a scientific procedure for successful living. He was observing at first hand the practical working of prayer power in personal experience. Personally, I believe that prayer is a sending out of vibrations from one person to another and to God. All of the universe is in vibration. There are vibrations in the molecules of a table. The air is filled with vibrations. The reaction between human beings is also in vibration. When you send out a prayer for another person, you employ the force inherent in a spiritual universe. You transport from yourself to the other person a sense of love, helpfulness, support, a sympathetic, powerful understanding, and in this process you awaken vibrations in a universe through which God brings to pass the good objectives prayed for. Experiment with this principle, and you will know its amazing results. For example, I have a habit, which I often use, of praying for people as I pass them. I remember being on a train traveling through West Virginia, when I had a curious thought. Saw a man standing on a station platform, then the train moved on, and he passed from sight. It occurred to me that I was seeing him for the first and last time. His life and mine touched lightly for just a fraction of an instant. He went his way and I went mine. I wondered how his life would turn out. Then I prayed for that man, sending out an affirmative prayer, that his life would be filled with blessings. Then I began praying for other people I saw as the train passed. I prayed for a man plowing in the field, and asked the Lord to help him, and give him a good crop. Saw a mother hanging up clothes, and that line of freshly washed garments told me she had a large family. A glimpse of her face and way in which she handled the clothes of the children told me she was a happy woman. I prayed for her, that she would have a happy life, that her husband would always be true to her, and that she would be true to him. I prayed that they might be a religious family, and that the children would grow up strong, honorable young people. In one station I saw a man leaning half asleep against a wall, and I prayed that he would wake up, and get off relief and amount to something. Then we stopped at a station, and there was a lovable little kid, one pants leg longer than the other, shirt open at the neck, wearing a too big sweater, hair tousled, face dirty. He was sucking a lollipop and working hard on it. I prayed for him, and as the train started to move he looked up at me, and gave me the most wonderful smile. I knew my prayer had caught him, and I waved to him, and he waved back at me. I shall never see that boy again in all likelihood, but our lives touched. It had been a cloudy day up to that point, but suddenly the sun came out, and I think there was light in the boy's heart, for it was revealed on his face. I know that my heart felt happy. I am sure it was because the power of God was moving in a circuit through me, to the boy and back to God, and we were all under the spell of prayer power. One of the important functions of prayer is as a stimulus to creative ideas. Within the mind are all of the resources needed for successful living. Ideas are present in consciousness which, when released and given scope together with proper implementation, can lead to the successful operation of any project or undertaking. When the New Testament says, "The kingdom of God is within you," Luke 17:21, it is informing us that God our Creator has laid up within our minds and personalities all the potential powers and ability we need for constructive living. It remains for us to tap and develop these powers. For example, a man of my acquaintance is connected with a business where he is the chief of 4 executives. At regular intervals these men have what they call an idea session, the purpose of which is to tap all the creative ideas lurking in the minds of any of the tour. For this session they use a room without telephones, buzzers, other usual office equipment. The double window is fully insulated, so that street noises are for the most part eliminated. Before starting the session the group spends 10 minutes in silent prayer and meditation. They conceive of God as creatively working in their minds. Each in his own way silently prays,